Hello everyone and welcome to Vblog Mag again. So it's that time of year again and it is the Cape Argus Pick and Pay Cycle Tour, and this is the expo where we go and pick up our numbers. So this show is all about bikes and women wearing rather peculiar clothing and more bikes, and can you believe it, some more people wearing some very odd clothing posing over bicycles, and believe it or not, more bicycles. Now, before we get stuck into the show, I'm going to run a little bit of the history of the Argus down with you and some of my results. This happens to be a picture of me when I first started, and I used to do the Argus on a mountain bike, very casually. But let's jump into some history. The Argus started in 1978 with 525 entrants. Lawrence Whitaker won it in 3 hours and 2 minutes, and Janice Tace won it in 4 hours 35. In 1987, there were 5,934 entrants. And the reason I mention this year is because Terence Mulder won it in 2 hours 46. And doing this research, I actually discovered he is the brother of Zinette Mulder, who happens to appear in another video. She's a good friend of mine who does handcrafted jewelry. Anyway, I started riding in 1999. At that point, there were 36,153 entrants. The race was 105 kilometers long, and I did the race on my mountain bike in 4 hours 28. So I was just plodding along. I was 15,304th out of 28,885. That just shows you how many people picked up on the day. But anyway, my other results are there if you just want to pause and see them. Then I started getting a little more serious. I started doing the Argus on a road bike in 2006, and at that point there were 40,000 entrants. I managed to finish in 2 hours 59 and 26, and that for me was a great achievement because it was the first time on a road bike doing the Argus, and I managed to do a sub 3 hour, and that is kind of the goal of any serious cyclist, is to do a sub 3 hour in the Argus. At that point I was riding in the F group and I was 7th in the F group, so not too bad. If we pop down the results, you'll see in 2007 I rode in VA, which is a vets group, and I did it in time of 2:53, and that was with a crash. Someone crossed the road in front of me. It was a homeless person. I hit them and almost dislocated my shoulder. Came off the bike but managed to jump on and still do a 2:53. Then more significantly in 2008 I did it in 2 hours 43, and I was riding in the A group, and that is a brilliant result. But it has to be said, and this is something you'll pick up when I talk about how to do an Argus in sub 3, when you're sitting in the A group, you are just being pulled along by very strong riders, and you don't have to do much work. But it was a very stressful ride because there were a lot of accidents. It's very fast and people are very twitchy. So that time will probably never be repeated again. But anyway, it's something at least I can hold high as a good result that I managed to achieve. So if you look down to 2009, you'll see it actually took me 3 hours 35. Now, at that point, I was living in the States. I came back from the States, and there was a howling southeaster. I'm actually going to put a link in the show notes, and I'll annotate this once it's on YouTube, where there's a video showing how bad that wind was. I got stuck at the start line under a building and couldn't get my bike going, but you'll see from the video when we get there. Then we moved to last year, and last year I was in the B group, and the route was a little longer because there were some road works. We had to go over Boys Drive, so a little bit of an extra climb, but I managed to still do a 2:58, and that was probably my most enjoyable Argus, to tell you the truth. The B group went at a good pace and it was nice and relaxed. So this year it'll be interesting to see what time I achieve. My biggest competition is going to be this man, Dean Gillett, my good friend. This happens to be a picture of him when we were cycling in France. We did the mountain stages of the 2006 Tour de France. This happens to be Alpe d'Huez, as I recall. And probably the least I have to worry about, my competition is not going to come from Pete. Now, Pete's also a good friend, and this also happens to be a picture of him from France. And he had just cycled his longest ride to date. It was 203 kilometers. On that day, in fact, Dean and I cycled 240 odd kilometers because we got a bit sidetracked, but it was one of the long stages. But I will do another video on the Tour de France and how you can prepare for it in terms of doing it as a trip, not competing, of course, but it's a great trip to do and you should seriously consider it. Now, just going back to the picture of Pete quickly, the reason I've actually posted Pete here is Pete is a good example of how a lot of other people do compete the Argus. They go and they have a good social. So obviously there's a front group of people. I'd say certainly the first 2,000-3,000 people are serious racers. There are certainly serious racers right through the groups, but a lot of people are there just to have a good social event because it's well attended, there's a lot of crowd support. And Pete has been known basically, and Pete's not alone, there's a lot of people who do this who will potentially stop at each water stop and water hole. Now when I say water hole, I mean pub. So Pete has done the Argus cycle tour and stopped from pub to pub as well. Anyway, let's get back to the expo. Okay, so here we have the entrance hall, and this is where we all line up and go and collect our numbers for the start and your registration information. As you see, there are loads of groups. The groups start racing from about 6:15 right through until just about 10 o'clock just after 10 o'clock in the morning. So this is a good point. I'm going to bring in and show you the start sheet so you'll get an idea of the number of groups and the starting times. Now, as you can see from that, I hope it's clear enough, they start at about 10:15, and there's a whole lot of groups starting at 6:15, I should say. I start in the C group this year, which starts at 6:33. Now that happens to be almost 10 minutes after Dean. Dean is starting in VB, which is 6:24. That's the veteran men 40 to 49. And that's because he's been racing, had some league racing, so he manages to get into that group. I haven't this year, so I'm not in that group. So you certainly have a little more advantage if you start off that early. So I'm going to have my work cut out. But as you can see, the groups go right through until 10:08. So there are a lot of people on the road. So it's certainly a lot easier to get a good time starting off early in the morning. And obviously the people further back are doing it more socially. If you are further back and trying to do a serious time, it's very, very difficult. And that's one reason to kind of race during the year, so you build up your seating to get into those top groups. Okay, so back to the show we go. And this is the first part of the retail as you exit the place where you get your numbers. And of course, this is a big opportunity for retailers and bike shops to make a lot of money because there's a lot of people passing through. And if you've got 35,000 people coming, they bring their family and friends, and so it's just a huge opportunity to make money for the retailers. Fortunately, I popped in when it wasn't too busy. Again, loads of bikes to be seen. Some top-end equipment here. I was speaking to some of the manufacturers and what have you, and there was kit here that hasn't been released either in the States or Europe. GoPro had an interesting stand. They were showing how you could get 3D visuals from GoPros mounted in a certain way. Nutrition is a big part of the show. That's something I'll be covering as well. Nutrition for short rides and for long rides. And Thule were there, and of course bicycle shops were as well. And the one noted here is one that we will be talking about because that's where I got my bike built up. And I'm hoping that I can sort out a bit of an issue with them, but it's something I'm going to cover in the kind of love-hate relationship with your bike shop. Oh, and those girls. What they were doing there, I do not know. But anyway, they added a bit of color, so a bit of eye candy. So, again, stunning bikes, lots of lightweight bikes, very expensive bikes. Prices of a lot of these bikes were upwards of 50, 60, 70,000 Rand. If you're thinking in dollars, divide by 8 to get a rough idea. KTM were there with some interesting color schemes on their bikes. That one not too badly priced, about 33,000 Rand. This is the Shimano TI stuff, and it's the first time I've actually seen it in the flesh and been able to sit and play with it. It's fascinating to see how when you change that rear derailleur, how the front derailleur compensates as well. I must say, it'd be fascinating to ride with it. I'm hoping it's some kit that I can actually review in the future on this channel, but it costs a lot of money. They have just brought out, as far as I think, an XT version, which is I think half the price, weighs a little bit more, but yeah, this stuff's expensive. Right, so next we move on to the Cannondale stand. And again, I'm hoping they had no 26-inch bikes. Everyone seems to be pushing 29-inch bikes, although the gent I spoke to here was telling me that he personally preferred riding 26-inch bikes. Again, I'm hoping to do a 26 versus 29-inch comparison on our Table Mountain time trial route. I'm going to certainly try to organize that. I actually went and had a chat to the marketing person of the agency for Cannondale, and he wasn't interested at all. Obviously my little channel means nothing to him, and he's already got a marketing plan, but I'll go and speak to the bike shops. Fancy that. There are those girls in that lad again. They kept on jumping in front of my camera. I'm not sure why, but they actually led me onto this Italian make of bike. I think it's called Wheeler. And I had a very interesting conversation with the gent here. Basically, they sell some very top-end bikes. They like to keep them pure. It's a family business, and they used to be in South Africa. They then pulled out, and they're now back again. They prefer having their bikes as all Italian kits, so like Campi and the Italian saddles and what have you. But they do mix Shimano and what have you with their bikes as well if you do want them. They had a bike there on show, which you'll see a little bit later, which will be ridden in the Tour de France. Now this one is a stunning old classic bike, and the gent Rob I spoke to, who's one of the key guys here, he is going to be producing a bamboo bike and selling them, and that I'm really intrigued about. They also, basically the money they earn from selling these bikes, they reinvest into Africa, setting up guys in Africa to sell bikes in Africa. He has a really interesting story to tell, and I hope to get an interview with him in the near future. Now this is one of their frames called 07. It's actually a sub 700 gram frame, which is quite incredible. And there you go, look at the price tag, 147,000, and that's with the Campi electronic changes. Those girls keep on getting in the way. But anyway, I was trying to film the bike, and there it is. You can just see it there. Then what caught my eye, if you watch my other channel, I'm a solar power nut, so these bags were there, so that if you are riding or backpacking or what have you, these little solar panels will charge a rechargeable battery to keep your goods on the go. Whether it's cell phone or iPods or what have you. They even have one on the pamphlet which can sit as looks like a rear mudguard. So if you're a day tourer, it sits behind you like a mudguard, but it's still collecting the rays of the sun and charging your electronic kit, which is quite interesting. Now the next little piece is someone imported these lights from California apparently, and you can string them around your bike. They've got a little power pack. You string them around your bike, and that's one way to illuminate your bike at night. He seems fairly keen to give me something for review, so perhaps we'll have a look at that in the near future. And then just on the way out, Focus had some bikes. These were quite interesting. Look at where they put the shock. It's right on the top tube, or into the top tube. I've never seen that before. Interesting design. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but it just caught my eye as something to look at the show. Then these are our local power company, and they were demonstrating with a dynamo on a bike how you can easily light up a CFL bulb, basically generating about 8 watts, and then basically switched over to the other bike where you had to pedal like mad and generate a lot more to light up a normal incandescent light. Anyway, that's it from the show. I hope you found the content interesting. I certainly will be back with more on cycling. If you do enjoy these videos, and certainly please do subscribe, and please do rate them if you enjoy the content. Give them a thumbs up, as it certainly helps progress what I'm doing. Cheers till next time.